on above. If it should rain, we'll let it. But for tonight, forget it. I'm in the mood for love. Why stop to think of whether this little dream might fade? We put our hearts together. Now we are one and I'm afraid. If there's a cloud above, if it should rain, we'll let it. But for tonight, forget it. I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for
Never meant to fuck it up. Here we are. 6:25 p.m. Drunk. Well on my way. I've always been a man governed by an uncontrollable rage. That is the rage that I have. It's well, yeah, it's ungovernable. I don't like this bar. Almost as much as the fact that I work here. I don't like my debts. I don't like very many things, but I'm less of myself here. And that's, it's not great. At a job, square job, you're nothing more than what you're paid, and that'll make me minimum. That makes me angry. It's 6:27. I'm off in 3 minutes. And when I'm off the clock, the world is going to have to contend with me.
6:28 p.m. The television set turns on by itself. Well, that's spooky. That's the news. It's telling me there is something wrong in the world. No, it's something wrong with the world. It's got me thinking about Carl. Every time I see a television set, I think of Carl. And us. Like most, our trauma began with a middle-aged man spotting us playing in a lumber yard. He watched us for 15 minutes before he said anything. No, of course, Carl was different. I remember his parents and him came to visit the set during a vacation, and Carl just started singing right in the middle of the Hal Roach cafeteria, and they hired him on the spot. That was one of many things that separated Carl from the rest of us. We got lured into it. Carl volunteered. That was the last thing he ever volunteered for. After that, things just sort of happened to him, and he didn't really have much to say about it. Like that farm in Kansas, those hunting dogs.
Yeah, he was a live wire, and I had paid him to train one of my dogs because, well, he trained all the greats. He trained Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda, Roy Rogers, all the great hunters. You know, he taught him how to hunt, how to be angry. He talked a lot about dogs and breeding. He told me to stay away from boxers, the loony breed. Yeah, the importance of a backup stud, the necessity of small towels. Yeah, I like dogs because they aren't people. I guess one, and I knew I shouldn't have done that. But sometimes you say yes to something, not because you want to, but because saying no is, it's easier to disappoint yourself than to give that power to someone else. Keep it internal. That way you got no one to be mad at but yourself. And I can be mad at me. My whole life has prepared me for that. It's 6:29 p.m. and I'm just mad that against my best instincts I gave him my fucking dog.
Yeah, I lost his dog. 6 weeks ago, you know, and I didn't live it. A bear came out of nowhere. Scared the thing away. And I got it back, and reward on it. Guy brought it back in the bar, sweet old guy, bad leg. I gave him a $35 reward, round of drinks, doubles, out of my own pocket. Which pisses me off because, you know, I shouldn't even be training dogs at this stage in my career. But at 6:30, the problem with sitting in your car for so long is you get to think about all the ways and whys and how unfair it all is. Because if we're to be honest, you know, I was dealt a winning hand. I could sing. I mean, I really could. The people in the position of power told me to fuck up my voice. Sing off key. It's funnier. Cute. Hal's words. There is a special place in hell for grown men who use the word cute. The point is that I have natural gifts, and the world led me astray. You know, I'd have been something for longer if it wasn't for the world. I really believe that.
He wasn't exactly likable. The cameraman insulted him for taking too long to say his lines. So he'd open up the side panel and he'd take a wad of gum and he would just stick it deep into the mechanics of the thing. One time he pissed on the stage lights. Now I'm a man who has smelled a number of horrifying things. But that, I mean, the smell of Carl's urine in conjunction with the heat emitting from those hot bulbs was, well, some roads are too dark to go down. 6:35 p.m., my hand's beginning to twitch. That's telling me to change the dial. I'm done watching this, or whatever this was. Huh. It's not funny. I was just thinking about that. And there we are. Young. Miserable and young.
The only thing worse than getting one call from Carl is getting 2 calls from Carl. Don't get me wrong, I was relieved to have my dog back, but I think I was even more relieved to have some distance from him and not have to exist in his orbit. One can never be at peace when Carl's around. It's like driving west of Fairfax. Even if you tell yourself you're okay with it, your nervous system knows you aren't. 6:37 p.m. and I'm just happy that I don't have to wait for the other shoe to drop anymore. That's the thing about guys like Carl, though. They're always dropping shoes. Always right when you least expect it. Always right on top of your head.
6:40 p.m. and I'm beginning to think it's not my fault. I mean, Bunch should probably paid $50. I don't know why I have to cover that. Why should I have to cover that? I mean, there are risks that those who do the hiring should just know. They should just know, you know, dogs get scared by bears. Humans get scared by bears, so do dogs. Dogs run away. You have to send somebody out, pay them to go find the dog, bring it back. That is an expense. Okay? That $50 is an expense, and I was very clear. Expenses are not part of my rate.
This isn't usual billing. 6:43 p.m. Normally that's the news. Every channel the news, but this time it's us. We're not getting paid for these reruns. That's okay. This one, it's a classic. And me and Carl were vying for the affections of the little girl, and Carl's cowlick is standing up there straight, erect, not moving. It's like that building in Washington. It's odd, though. You know, I'm looking at the 1936 version of us, and for the most part, It's the 1936 versions of us staring back at me, except for Carl. I mean, he's 9 years old, his body's 9 years old in this picture, and his eyes, they're older. It's like they've seen things. They've seen things still. It's like they're seeing me now.
You always know when something's going to circle back around. 6:44 p.m. and my gut's telling me that my business with Carl is far from over, even though my brain is trying to convince me otherwise. He always said he didn't lose the dog. The bear who scared the dog lost the dog. He found the dog. And that's partly true. I mean, if you're going by words alone, it's 100% true. The words are only half the equation. The other half is how those words feel. That's the second truth. The greater truth, if you ask me.
6:45, I got a major decision to make. Am I gonna take exit 6 here, coming up 3 miles, go home, or I'm gonna take this ribbon highway all the way to Mission Hills, Bud Stilts' house, talk to my good friend, about $50. That's not my responsibility to explain all the ways that things can go wrong. I mean, it's just common sense. You know, and that's the problem where you got to explain so much to the people that pay you, and they just don't get it. And there are risks, you know, no matter if you're training dogs or you're singing hockey. Whoops! I just missed my exit. And I can see Mission Hills from here.
6:51 p.m. Yeah, I haven't seen Carl in 2 years since. We were both in a pretty bad way then. And he was in a marriage and didn't know what to do with. I was afraid to become very cold. You could tell he was living violently. There was just something in his face, the way it hung, it just said so. I hated seeing him that way then. But that was the worst way you could see somebody. That was before this, whatever this ghostly thing is.
6:53 p.m. and my stepson, he's asking me if we can go to the park tomorrow. Of course, I say yes, even though that's not what I want to do. I was reading in one of those science fiction magazines the other day that there are people who believe that there are worlds sort of parallel to this one. I wonder if that's true. What if there's a world where I have a backbone? I look to visit that place. I don't give a shit about the climate or the native hospitality. I just want to visit a world where when I open my mouth to speak, and what I feel, what I truly feel, is what comes out. I fear that a man who can't express what he really feels can't truly exist. Or at least not exist in any way that matters.
I hate when people honk. Like, we're not all trying to figure out what 170 is doing. Now, I'm amazed. I feel they honk less than you do. But I'm not long for this freeway. 655 on surface streets. You can't tell by the sound of my voice, but I'm livid. Yeah, the winter of 56, I got so angry, my vocal cords leveled out. My voice remains at this volume and cadence, no matter how infuriated I am. It's the principle. I mean, that's all it ever was. Principle, $50, the lifetime on the set, the demand to exist in a world that on terms that I never had any say in. I never needed tomorrow. Never needed the future. Future never needed me. That's the principle. I know I'm a big deal, but $50 is $50, and I'm going to get mine, even if I have to cut it out with this penknife.
6:56 p.m. and I can see his eyes framed in the sea of freckles that encircle his 9-year-old face. Coal black, like a sea of oil. It's flashes with some kind of a more current rage.
It's 6:57 p.m. and I hear the screeching of tires against the blacktop and a glint of an oncoming truck from the chrome. There's a knock on my door, and a cracking voice says,
Western Union or Bud Stills.
"Oh, I love getting stuff, so I open it." It's not Western Union, it's Carl. I can tell by the weight of his lope that he's drunk. I say something to him and his face just reddens. And he yells. I mean, he doesn't yell at all since that incident in '56, but he yells.
Responsibility? What does that mean? What does that even, what a stupid question to ask.
I didn't tell him to take responsibility. I don't know where he got that from, and I try to tell him that, but it's too late. He's already coming at me. He's bloodthirsty and full of rage, and I take my son, I push my stepson in front of me to block me from his ire, but he pushes him aside, and he comes after me, and so I retreat into the house.
And I follow.
I go up the stairs,
And I follow.
down the hall, into the bedroom,
And I follow.
into the closet.
I don't follow. Slams the door shut. I kick at the base of the door. I want my $50 and I want it now.
I give him a warning.
I never got a warning.
I pull the hammer back.
Open the door.
I fire.
The bullet came in low. I instinctively placed my hand over my genitals. My first thought that I hadn't hit anything that mattered, but the blood reminded me that there are some, not many, parts of the body more important than one's dick. Yes, right here, the femoral artery.
This all happened on the same day as Cecil B. DeMille's death, so you might have missed it in the papers. Carl would have hated that.
My son, my stepson, he said that I shot him after he already turned to leave. That wasn't true. My stepson and me never really got along. It's a final bit of revenge. The courts, they called it justifiable homicide. And that sounds right. Feels right. That's the thing about standing up for yourself. It's always good for you, never very good for the other person. If there's a way to stand up for yourself that didn't involve homicide, I never learned what it was. Out there in the cosmos, there's a world where I learned something before it's too late. I just need to find the right science fiction magazine to get me there.
6:59 p.m. TV screen freezes. The strangest thing. Carl's mouth moves, and the face stays still, but his mouth moves, and it says,
Hey, Frankie, it's me, Alfalfa. Stay with me a minute. I'm dying.
We're all in debt. Some sense for our own legacies of violence. No one carries that debt more than child actors. Yeah, it's funny. Nowadays, we're not exactly what comes to mind when we think of the gang. But there was a time when we were. And Carl was our leader. We all stood in the shadow of his cowlick. Generations of children mirrored our actions, but in the end, they're the phonies. We were the real thing, huh? Those were our stories, and those were our adventures. That was our time. That was our gang, huh? 7 p.m., January 21st, 1959, and my television set goes black.
I bled out in the ambulance while I was still trying to make sense of the dreaded 170. And I'm dead now, but it's not so bad. There's a lot more advertisements up here than you'd expect. Coca-Cola's big. And that's obvious. You could be the biggest prick and you float. You no longer have the right to be tethered to or under the earth. I keep thinking I'm going to write a book about what happens after you're dead, and then I remember who published it. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that there's no future in death. It's a lot like life, that way. Anguished souls looking at the illusion of tomorrow and unable to accept the reality that tomorrow never is. That's all we ever had, the here, the now. And the great once was.
As I walked out on the streets, I see that you are how these words you say as I always divide. I'll sit down beside you, hear myself shot in the breast and power the sky. Oh, beat the drum slowly and play the fight. Lay the dead watch as he carried you on. Wood bunkers and roses all over. Roses twisted down the glow. As we bore along, oh, we all loved to breathe.